For decades, American homeownership felt like the safest bet you could make. Buy a house, watch it appreciate, sell it for a fortune down the line. That playbook worked beautifully through the 2010s and exploded during the pandemic when home values shot up faster than anyone could have predicted. Bidding wars became the norm. Buyers waived inspections, paid tens of thousands over asking, and convinced themselves it was all worth it because homes only went up. But 2025 is teaching a very different lesson. In cities that once felt bulletproof, home values aren't just softening, they're plummeting. Markets that saw explosive growth are now watching equity vanish practically overnight. Sellers who expected windfall profits are slashing prices just to attract interest. And homeowners who stretch their budgets to the limit are suddenly staring at properties worth less than what they owe. The collapse isn't coast to coast, but it's hitting hard in places where speculation ran wild, supply exploded, or local economies cracked under pressure. Today, we're counting down 13 cities where home values are falling hard right now, and some of these drops are genuinely shocking. If you care about real estate, the economy, or just understanding what's happening in America right now, make sure to hit subscribe because we're diving deep. Let's get into it. Number 13, Boise, Idaho. Boise went from hidden gem to national headline practically overnight. During the pandemic, it became the darling of remote workers fleeing expensive coastal cities. Californians, Seattleites, and Portlanders arrived with cash offers that left locals stunned. Home prices doubled in some neighborhoods within 2 years. Builders scrambled to meet demand, throwing up subdivisions as fast as permits allowed. For a moment, Boise genuinely felt unstoppable. But by 2025, the fairy tale has ended abruptly. Home values have dropped nearly 11% year over year, one of the steepest declines in the Mountain West. The remote workers who drove the surge have largely disappeared. Companies called employees back to offices. Others realized living in Idaho wasn't quite the dream they imagined. And the locals who were priced out during the boom certainly aren't rushing back to buy homes still priced 40% higher than they were in 2019. The result is a market flooded with inventory and virtually no buyers. Homes in Meridian, Eagle, and Nampa sit on the market for months, racking up price cuts every few weeks. Sellers who bought at the peak are trapped, unable to sell without taking devastating losses. New construction projects have stalled mid-build, leaving half-finished subdivisions that look like suburban ghost towns. For investors who thought Boise was the next Austin, the lesson has been brutal. Markets built on hype rather than fundamentals don't just cool off, they collapse. And Boise's collapse is a textbook case of what happens when explosive growth meets reality. Number 12. Austin, Texas. Austin's real estate market mirrored its personality. Loud, fast, and overconfident. Tesla moved in. Oracle relocated. Tech workers flooded the city, and everyone assumed the party would never end. Home prices in areas like East Austin, Hyde Park, and even distant suburbs like Pflugerville skyrocketed. Bidding wars became so intense that buyers regularly paid $100,000 over asking without blinking. Developers responded by building luxury homes at a breakneck pace, convinced demand was infinite. It wasn't. By 2025, Austin's home values have tumbled about 9%, and the market is drowning in unsold inventory. The tech layoffs that crushed the rental market also devastated homebuyers. Thousands of high-income workers either left the city or tightened their budgets dramatically. Meanwhile, property taxes in Travis County have climbed so high that even wealthy buyers are second-guessing whether Austin is worth it. Homeowners who bought in 2021 or 2022 are underwater, owing more on their mortgages than their homes could sell for today. And it's not just the urban core. Suburbs like Round Rock and Cedar Park are seeing price drops that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. New developments that were supposed to sell out in weeks are sitting mostly empty, with builders offering incentives that feel more like desperate pleas. Austin sold itself as the city of the future, but the future arrived with a harsh bill. The cost of living spiraled, traffic became unbearable, and the cultural quirks that made Austin special got buried under corporate sprawl. In 2025, the city that kept it weird is keeping it real in the worst way possible. Number 11. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has always been a gamble, and right now, homeowners are losing. For years, the city attracted Californians desperate to escape sky-high prices. They sold modest homes in LA or the Bay Area and bought McMansions in Henderson or Summerlin with cash left over. Builders kept pace, constructing sprawling subdivisions across the valley. But the music stopped in 2024, and by 2025, home values have dropped roughly 8%. The city's economic foundation, tourism and hospitality, remains shaky. Casinos aren't hiring like they used to. Convention attendance is down. And the service workers who make up a huge chunk of the population are earning less and spending even less. At the same time, rising interest rates have choked off buyer demand. Homes that would have sparked bidding wars in 2021 now linger for months with multiple price reductions. Sellers are panicking, slashing asking prices by $50,000, $75,000, even more just to generate interest, or just to. Investors who scooped up properties expecting endless appreciation are quietly exiting, often at a loss. The suburbs have been hit hardest. Areas like North Las Vegas and Pahrump are seeing inventory pile up with virtually no movement. Builders who overestimated demand are now stuck with finished homes they can't sell, forcing them to offer absurd incentives, paid closing costs, rate buy-downs, even free upgrades. And yet many homes still sit empty. Las Vegas has seen this before. The 2008 crash hit the city harder than almost anywhere else in the country. The current downturn isn't as catastrophic, but the echoes are unmistakable. Once again, speculation outran reality. Once again, the house didn't win. Number 10. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix was supposed to be the Sun Belt's shining example of sustainable growth. Jobs were strong. The population was growing. And housing, while expensive, still felt attainable compared to California. Developers believed in Phoenix so deeply that they built tens of thousands of homes in just a few years. Subdivisions sprawled across the desert, stretching from Chandler to Surprise to Queen Creek. But by 2025, that optimism has curdled. Home values have fallen about 10%, and the market is choking on oversupply. Builders miscalculated badly. They flooded the valley with inventory right as demand started collapsing. Rising mortgage rates made buying unaffordable for many, and the Californians who once drove Phoenix's growth have largely stopped coming. The result is a buyer's market unlike anything the city has seen in over a decade. Homes sit unsold for months. Price cuts are routine. And builders are slashing prices on new construction just to move inventory before they drown in carrying costs. In areas like Maricopa and Casa Grande, the situation is even worse. Entire neighborhoods of brand-new homes sit nearly empty, their pristine exteriors hiding the financial desperation of the developers who built them. For homeowners who bought at the peak, the drop in value is gut-wrenching. Equity they thought was locked in has evaporated. Refinancing is nearly impossible, and selling means accepting a loss that could take years to recover from. Phoenix's sprawl was always its defining feature, but now that sprawl feels like a trap. The desert that once symbolized endless possibility now reflects the cold reality of a market that expanded too fast and too far. Number 9. Tampa, Florida. Tampa's rise was fueled by a perfect storm: remote work, low taxes, and an endless stream of retirees and young professionals fleeing colder climates. Developers rushed to capitalize, throwing up luxury condos downtown and sprawling single-family subdivisions in places like Wesley Chapel and Riverview. For a while, it worked. Home prices surged, inventory disappeared, and Tampa started comparing itself to Miami as Florida's next big thing. But by 2025, reality has arrived with force. Home values have slipped roughly 9%, and the market is flooded with inventory that simply won't move. Insurance costs have become a nightmare. Policies have doubled or tripled in price, and some insurers have abandoned Florida entirely. Property taxes are climbing as local governments scramble to fund infrastructure for all the growth they encouraged. And the hurricane risk, once something people casually accepted, now feels existential after several brutal storm seasons. Buyers who were once willing to overlook these issues are now walking away. Appraisals are coming in low, deals are falling apart, and sellers are stuck in limbo. Homeowners who bought in 2021 or 2022 are realizing they paid top dollar for properties that may not recover value for years, if ever. Even the suburbs aren't safe. Areas like Brandon and Lutz are seeing homes sit on the market far longer than normal, with price cuts becoming routine. New construction, once the pride of Tampa's growth story, is now a liability. Builders are offering incentives so aggressive they border on desperate, and still, many developments sit mostly unsold. Tampa's dream of becoming Florida's next powerhouse is colliding hard with the messy realities of climate risk, insurance chaos, and overbuilding. Number 8. Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh was the golden child of the Southeast, a city that seemed to do everything right. Strong universities, a booming tech scene, and a steady influx of transplants from the Northeast made it feel like a safe, stable investment. Developers believed in Raleigh so much they built thousands of homes in record time, filling in every available lot from downtown to Cary to Wake Forest. But in 2025, that confidence is cracking. Home values have dropped about 8%, and inventory is starting to pile up in ways the city hasn't seen in years. The issue isn't a collapsed economy. It's that growth simply paused. Companies slowed hiring. Remote workers who moved during the pandemic are reconsidering, and younger buyers the demographic Raleigh counted on are being squeezed by student loans, inflation, and stagnant wages. Sellers are starting to feel the pressure. Homes that would have sold in days now sit for weeks or months. Price reductions are becoming the norm, and buyers are negotiating aggressively, knowing they have leverage for the first time in years. In neighborhoods like North Raleigh and Apex, the shift is especially visible. These areas attracted premium buyers who expected steady appreciation. Now those same buyers are watching their equity shrink while carrying costs climb. New construction developments are struggling too. Builders who started projects in 2022 are now finishing homes in a market that no longer wants them. Incentives are everywhere, paid closing costs, rate buy-downs, free upgrades, and still, many homes sit empty, waiting for buyers who may never come. Raleigh's story is less dramatic than some cities on this list, but it's a reminder that even stable markets aren't immune. When growth slows and supply outpaces demand, prices fall. And right now, Raleigh is learning that lesson in real time. Number 7. Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville spent the last decade as America's IT city. The music scene, the food, the culture, and a business-friendly environment made it irresistible to transplants from across the country. Home prices climbed steadily, then sharply, as demand overwhelmed supply. Neighborhoods like East Nashville, Germantown, and 12 South became impossible to afford for longtime residents. Developers, sensing gold, built aggressively. Luxury condos sprouted downtown. Subdivisions spread across Williamson and Rutherford counties. Everyone assumed Nashville's momentum was unstoppable, but by 2025, the momentum has stalled hard. Home values have dropped about 10%, and the market is softer than it's been in over a decade. The flood of transplants has slowed to a trickle. Remote work, the engine that powered Nashville's boom, has faded as companies demand returns to the office. And many who moved to Nashville during the pandemic are realizing the city's cost of living has climbed so much that the financial advantage over bigger cities has disappeared. Sellers are stuck. Homes sit on the market far longer than they used to. Price cuts are routine, and buyers are negotiating hard, knowing they hold the cards. In the suburbs, the situation is even more dire. Areas like Franklin, Spring Hill, and Murfreesboro saw explosive growth and are now seeing explosive corrections. New builds that were supposed to sell quickly are sitting empty. Builders are offering incentives so steep it's clear they're just trying to stop the bleeding. For investors who bought rental properties expecting steady cash flow and appreciation, Nashville has become a nightmare. Rents are softening, property taxes are rising, and home values are dropping. The city that once symbolized opportunity now feels like a cautionary tale about what happens when hype overshoots reality. Number 6. Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City's rise felt organic. A strong economy, outdoor lifestyle, and relative affordability compared to the West Coast made it a magnet for young professionals and families. Developers responded by building everywhere: downtown, the suburbs, even the far reaches of Utah County. Home prices climbed steadily, then exploded during the pandemic as Californians arrived in droves. But by 2025, the explosion has reversed. Home values have fallen roughly 10%, and the market is facing a reckoning. The out-of-state buyers who drove prices to record highs have vanished. Remote work policies changed. Interest rates made borrowing expensive, and many who moved to Utah are reconsidering whether the trade-offs are worth it. The state's conservative politics, air quality issues, and rising costs have pushed some transplants back to where they came from. Inventory is climbing fast. Homes in areas like Draper, Harriman, and Lehigh sit unsold for months. Sellers who bought at the peak are trapped, unable to sell without taking massive losses. And builders who went all in on Utah's growth are now stuck with finished homes they can't move. Subdivisions that were supposed to sell out in weeks are sitting largely empty, their streets quiet and lifeless. Price cuts are everywhere. Homes listed at $650,000 6 months ago are now priced at $575,000, then $550,000, with sellers desperately hoping someone, anyone, will bite. For homeowners, the psychological shift is jarring. Properties they thought were their ticket to wealth are now financial anchors, dragging down their net worth and limiting their options. Salt Lake City's crash isn't as dramatic as some cities, but it's a clear sign that even markets with strong fundamentals can falter when speculation and oversupply collide. Number 5. Spokane, Washington. Spokane's moment in the sun was brief but intense. As Seattle and Portland became unaffordable, people started looking east. Spokane offered space, affordability, and a slower pace of life. Home prices, which had been stable for years, suddenly surged. Bidding wars erupted in neighborhoods that had never seen competition. Californians and Seattleites flooded in, paying cash and driving locals out of the market. Developers tried to keep up, building new subdivisions and apartment complexes as fast as permits allowed. But by 2025, the surge has reversed violently. Home values have dropped about 12%, one of the sharpest declines in the Pacific Northwest. The buyers who drove Spokane's boom have evaporated. Remote work policies tightened. The appeal of living in a smaller city faded, and many who moved to Spokane realized they missed the amenities and culture of larger metros. Inventory has exploded. Homes sit unsold for months, accumulating price cut after price cut. Sellers who bought in 2021 or 2022 are facing brutal losses, unable to recoup what they paid, and new construction, which flooded the market during the boom, is now a massive liability. Builders are stuck with inventory they can't move, forcing them to offer desperate incentives that still aren't generating interest. Neighborhoods on the outskirts of the city, places like Airway Heights and Liberty Lake, are seeing the steepest declines. These areas attracted buyers looking for affordability, but now they're becoming cautionary tales about buying on the fringe of a market driven by hype. Spokane's crash is a reminder that smaller cities aren't immune to market forces. When speculation drives prices beyond what local incomes can support, the correction is inevitable and painful. Number 4. Denver, Colorado. Denver spent the 2010s as one of America's hottest markets. Legal cannabis, a booming tech scene, and easy access to world-class skiing made it a magnet for young professionals. Home prices climbed year after year, fueled by steady demand and limited supply. The pandemic accelerated everything. Remote workers flooded in, inventory vanished, and bidding wars became the norm. Developers built aggressively, trying to meet demand they assumed would last forever. It didn't. By 2025, Denver's home values have dropped roughly 11%, and the market is facing a painful correction. Rising interest rates crushed buyer demand. Remote work faded, eliminating the flexibility that made Denver attractive. And the cost of living, which climbed steadily for years, has reached a breaking point. Many residents are leaving, either priced out or simply exhausted by the financial pressure. Inventory is climbing fast. Homes in neighborhoods like Capitol Hill, Highlands, and even the suburbs are sitting unsold far longer than they used to. Price cuts are routine, and sellers are starting to panic. In the suburbs, places like Aurora, Thornton, and Littleton, the situation is worse. New construction flooded these areas during the boom, and now builders are stuck with unsold homes. Incentives are everywhere, paid closing costs, rate buydowns, even cash bonuses. And still, inventory piles up. For homeowners who bought at the peak, the loss of equity is devastating. Properties that were supposed to be long-term investments are now financial traps, worth far less than what's owed. Denver's crash is a sobering reminder that even desirable markets have limits. When prices outpace incomes and speculation takes over, corrections are inevitable. Number 3. Portland, Oregon. Portland's real estate market was always quirky, but by 2025, it's become downright dysfunctional. Home values have dropped about 13%, one of the steepest declines on the West Coast. The city's struggles are deep and multifaceted. A homelessness crisis that's spiraled out of control, rising crime that's pushed residents and businesses out, and a cost of living that climbed so high it priced out the very people who gave Portland its character. During the pandemic, Portland saw a brief surge as remote workers sought space and affordability. But that surge was short-lived. As offices reopened and the city's problems became undeniable, buyers disappeared. Inventory has exploded. Homes sit on the market for months, often with multiple price reductions. Sellers who once expected competitive offers are now grateful for any interest at all. Neighborhoods that were once highly desirable, places like Alberta, Hawthorne, and even parts of the Pearl District, are seeing significant value drops. In the suburbs, the story is similar. Areas like Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Gresham are flooded with inventory that won't move. Builders who expanded during the boom are now stuck with homes they can't sell, forcing them to offer incentives so aggressive it's clear they're desperate. For homeowners, the decline feels personal. Portland was supposed to be different, a city that balanced growth with livability. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when leadership fails to address core issues. The market's collapse reflects a deeper crisis of confidence. Buyers don't just doubt home values, they doubt the city's future. Number 2. San Francisco, California. San Francisco's real estate collapse is one of the most dramatic in the country. Home values have plummeted roughly 16%, and the market shows no signs of stabilizing. The tech workers who once powered demand have largely vanished, either laid off or relocated to cheaper cities. Remote work didn't fade here. It became permanent, and with it went the need to live in one of the world's most expensive cities. Inventory is overwhelming. Condos that once sold for $1.2 million are now listed at $950,000 and still not moving. Single-family homes in neighborhoods like No Valley and The Mission are sitting unsold for months, with sellers slashing prices repeatedly. The downtown core is especially bleak. Office buildings sit empty. Restaurants and shops have closed. And the luxury condos built during the boom are now ghost towers, with vacancy rates hitting record highs. For homeowners, the financial pain is severe. Many bought at the peak, convinced San Francisco real estate was a sure thing. Now they're underwater, unable to sell without catastrophic losses. Concerns about crime, homelessness, and quality of life have accelerated the exodus. Families who once tolerated the city's challenges for career opportunities are deciding it's not worth it anymore. They're moving to suburbs, other states, or smaller cities where life feels more manageable. San Francisco's collapse isn't just about numbers, it's about a fundamental shift in how people view the city. The innovation capital of the world is losing its grip, and the real estate market is paying the price. Number 1. New York City. At the top of the list, defying expectations, is New York City. For generations, New York real estate felt invincible. No matter the crisis, prices always bounced back. But in 2025, that narrative is finally breaking. Home values in Manhattan have dropped about 14%, and in parts of Brooklyn and Queens, the decline is closer to 17%. The pandemic exodus never fully reversed. Remote work gave people options they didn't have before, and many chose not to return. The finance and tech sectors, which powered demand, have been battered by layoffs and economic uncertainty. Luxury condos that were supposed to sell for $3 million are now priced at $2.4 million with no buyers in sight. Inventory is surging, sellers are panicking, and buyers, sensing weakness, are negotiating ruthlessly. In Brooklyn, neighborhoods like Williamsburg, Park Slope, and Dumbo are seeing significant corrections. Homes that sold in bidding wars during the pandemic are now sitting unsold, their sellers trapped by mortgages they can't afford to pay without rental income. New construction, once a safe bet, has become a liability. Developers who started luxury projects in 2021 are now finishing them in a market with no appetite. Incentives are everywhere, but they're not working. Even the ultra-wealthy are pulling back. Foreign buyers, who once propped up Manhattan's luxury market, have disappeared, spooked by global instability and domestic tax policies. For the first time in decades, New York's real estate market feels genuinely vulnerable. The city that never sleeps is wide awake, watching its home values tumble and wondering when or if the fall will stop. And that's the reality unfolding across America in 2025. The cities that soared the highest are now falling the hardest.